Okay, good morning, Year 11. I wanted first of all just to thank you for all the hard work that you've put in this half term, but also wanted to set you up well for the half term coming, and in particular wanted to outline with you a few of the things that we're putting on for you over the half term to make sure that you hit the ground running and to make sure that you make the very most of your upcoming PPEs. But before I did any of that, I just wanted to introduce to you the concept of the number 50. I mean, I'm sure you're already very well aware of the concept, at least, of number 50 or the number 50, but I wanted you to have a think about what that might mean in the context of Year 11. So I'm going to ask you just to pause the video for a second, have a quick turn and talk. What do you think that number 50 might mean? So actually, the reason I've put that 50 up there is that there are 50 school days left before your first GCSE exam. And actually, I tell a lie, it's not quite 50, it's actually only 47. So if you scroll through and have a look at some of the days coming up, we miss a day for Good Friday, we miss a school day for the May bank holiday, we miss a school day for an inset. So actually, you only have 47 school days left before your first GCSE exam, which will be Biology Paper 1 on Friday, May the 10th. So obviously that gets us thinking about upcoming dates and how close we are to the end of your school journey actually. So for example, there are only, given that, 67 days remaining before your Leavers Assembly and the chance for you to go through that first rite of passage, which I know is something that means a lot to a lot of students in Year 11, the class of 2024. But also therefore 83 days left only until your prom, where you'll get an opportunity to dress up, parade yourselves in front of your peers, your teachers, and be able to walk down the school driveway in whatever form of transport you may have been able to source between now and then. So there's a lot of rites of passage coming up for you, Year 11, that we recognise are really important. But as part of that, we also want to make sure that the last few days you have with us at school are really purposeful as well. So I'm going to talk to you today about a number of revision strategies. I'm mindful we've spoken a little bit about these revision strategies already in Assembly, and we've also had external providers come in and give their take on what really purposeful revision looks like, particularly in Year 11. But I think given that it's the last day of term before you go off on your revision, and given that we're launching our core camps, I think it's important that we do look at things like study capture. We talk about, or I talk you through flashcards and how you best use those, mind maps, and talk to you a little bit about what effortful subjects or effortful topics are. Now, you'll have seen this a whole bunch of times, and I make no excuses for repeating this slide. This is obviously the opportunity for us to show you how you would break down your revision over the half term coming up. So you've got 5 days in the middle and 2 weekends. And you've heard before, and I've spoken before, about breaking your day down into manageable chunks such that you would devote 3 hours a day to particular subjects, and you can spread those 3 hours each day over the course of your half term. And whether you want to actually break those 3 hours, in some cases, into 2 1.5 hour slots to try and mirror what your actual GCSE terminal exams might look like in terms of a 90-minute paper, that would be a sensible way to break it up. So you've seen this before, this is nothing new. But you also know now that we're putting on core camps for you, so revision, supervised revision activities for you over the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of half term, which will total anything up to 9 hours. You will have seen this as well. So over the course of the 3 days, we'll break the sessions down. First session at 9 o'clock, second session 10:45, the third session at 12:30. So the day will be finished by 2 o'clock for you to go and have lunch. And there are various subjects offering their expertise and supporting you in revising for your PPEs. And it's really important that you take advantage of the invites that you've had already this week. In terms of some of our expectations for the core camps, you have to arrive on time. They're not designed for you to drop in halfway through. So please, I would arrive at the very least 5 minutes early so that you have the opportunity to sign the register down in reception, and I will make sure that that is clear for you and that you get to your session on time so that you can start punctually and get the most out of those sessions. And then for most sessions there will also be revision resources to take away with you to follow up from the learning that you'll have done through those revision camps, through those core camps. However, you'll also be mindful that if we're expecting, broadly speaking, 3 hours a day revision for you, the core camps only take up 9 hours of that entire half term, and therefore there will be the opportunity or the expectation for you to carry out another 18 or so hours of independent revision outside of school, outside of the core camps. And whilst obviously the hub will be open for you on each Saturday morning between 9 and 12, that still leaves at least 4 3-hour sessions or 8 90-minute sessions for you to be independently revising without staff input and perhaps without tutors and so on and so forth. So I want to be really clear about what that independent revision can look like when you haven't got the help of a teacher to support you through. And there are 4, like I said earlier, there are 4 revision strategies that we are really recommending you use in order to best revise independently. So they are study capture, they are flashcards, they are mind maps, and they are effortful subjects or effortful topics. So the first we're going to talk about is study capture. So what essentially that does is it allows you, after the end of each day, to reflect on what lessons you had that day, so that you can try and train your brain to build those synapses and to start thinking about recalling what it is you did on a previous day. And if you're able to recall all of the subjects and all of the topics and all of the key takeaways that you did on a previous day, you are far more likely to embed that in your long-term memory and be able to recall it, particularly in an exam situation. So we're going to provide you with study capture sheets like the one on the screen, and you would very simply write down for each day what your subject was, what the particular topic was within that subject, what the particular takeaways are, the one key thing you need to remember, any key words, and at the end you would either rate that, so you'd rate it either green, amber or red depending on how well you remember it. So as an example, in tutor time you might have studied maths, and the topic you might have looked at might be the area of a circle. So the key takeaway there would be the formula that the area of a circle equals pi r squared, or the area of a semicircle would be half times pi r squared, because a semicircle is half the area of a full circle. And then key words might be radius and diameter, and if you were happy with that and you can remember it and you felt confident in the questions you were doing, you would rag that G for green, and so on and so forth, and over the course of the week you would fill in your study capture sheet until it was complete. And then start a new one for the next week. So the first very straightforward revision tool is to complete these study capture sheets day by day, reflecting on your day's learning to help embed all the topics that you've learnt over the course of the day and then over the course of the week into your long-term memory. The second revision strategy that we're asking you to use, particularly over half term, but between now and the exams, will be flashcards. And particularly we want to introduce the concept of a Freya flashcard. So it's very easy to use a pretty standard flashcards. I'm sure a number of you have already started using those. We recommend you actually split your flashcards into 4 sections. Label each of the 4 sections as I have done. So statement, elaborate, example and image. And then when you create your flashcards, you fill in each of those 4 sections based on the title. So you would write a statement, for example, the area of a semicircle is half times pi times the radius squared, and there's the formula. You would elaborate that, so you put some explanation onto the statement and make it a bit more in depth. You would give an example, as I have done on the bottom left, so there's an example question there, and then where appropriate you would draw an image, and in this case I've drawn the image of a semicircle with the radius annotated on. So because you're splitting your Freya card or your Freya flashcard into 4 sections, it becomes a bit more manageable to chunk that, but it also becomes a little bit more manageable to recall some of the key information. And then what we would ask you to do is take all of your flashcards from all the topics in all of your subjects, and we'd sort them into 3 piles. So pile 1 would be your daily pile, pile 2 would be the weekly pile, and pile 3 would be the fortnightly pile, and I'll explain that. So all of your flashcards would start off in the daily pile. You'd have one big pile, and you would test yourself on those flashcards, and a little bit later on in the presentation I'll talk about what that looks like. But if you test yourself and you can correctly recall the information on the card, you'd move that flashcard into pile 2, and you'd leave that to look at every week. So gradually over time, so every day you test yourself on these flashcards, and when you can remember and recall the information without cheating, you move it into pile 2. And if you can't recall any of the information correctly on the flashcard, it stays in pile 1. And then on top of that, every week, this might be every Saturday or every Sunday, you would take your pile 2, and again you would test yourself on that information. And if again you tested yourself and you can recall all the information on the card, you'd move the flashcard to pile 3. And if you can't recall that information once a week and it's crept back out of your long-term memory, you would move the card back down into the daily pile, where you would test yourself again daily on those cards. And then obviously every fortnight, so every other week, you would then pick up pile 3 and you would test yourself again. If you can recall the information in pile 3, it stays in pile 3, it stays in that fortnightly pile. And then if you've forgotten it, it would move back down to the weekly pile, and so on. So over time, you're testing yourself daily on the things that you find it more difficult to remember. And once you've committed those facts to your long-term memory, they become weekly recall facts, and then over time, fortnightly recall facts. The aim being, by the time you hit your GCSE exams or your PPEs, the majority, if not all of your cards are in the fortnightly pile, because you're able to recall them with a bit of a gap in between each testing period. And that is a true sign of the information being committed to your short-term memory. The third revision strategy I want to talk you through is the idea of mind maps. Again, this is nothing new. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know how to draw a mind map, but just a few pointers. I would try whereas possible to find A3 paper. So the bigger the mind maps, the better, so you can get into more detail with the information you draw. I would complete each mind map after each lesson, and I would make each mind map topic specific. And as you go, so after each lesson, when you get home, you add to your mind map, so that by the end of the topic, you have got one A3 piece of paper that has all the information that you might need on a particular topic. And a really nice example of that would be a version that the geography department use, where they split their mind map for a particular topic into 12 parts. And you'll see there that there are 12 different subheadings for the topic on tectonic hazards, which allows you then to elaborate really in a lot of detail all the information you might need on tectonic hazards, so that you can start revising that for your exam. And then the last of the 4 strategies I want to talk to you about is the idea of effortful subjects. Now, we call these effortful subjects because they do require a bit more effort for you to revise. They might be perhaps those topics that you struggle with a little bit, or that you find yourself perhaps a bit more demotivated to revise, and therefore truthfully we know that those are the topics that you might need to spend most time revising, even though it might not be particularly pleasant. So in terms of the effortful subjects and how you would commit those to memory, again, we're going to incorporate those Freya flashcards. So if you completely cannot remember a particular topic, you would watch a video. So you might go onto your Sparks, for example, or you might read back over the notes you took in a lesson, and that should take about 5 minutes. So you're going to get a bit of input as to a bit of revision on exactly what the topic content would be on a subject or a topic that you're not so confident on. That would take 5 minutes. And then you would write a Freya flashcard, or as many Freya flashcards as possible, within a 10-minute window. And once you've completed those Freya flashcards, you would turn them over and you would try and commit to memory. You'd spend 5 minutes committing to memory the information, the statements and the elaborations, so those first 2 boxes on the Freya flashcards, until you can commit them to memory and you can recite them without looking at the flashcard. And again, once you've managed to commit that to memory, it's those opportunities that you can then use to move the flashcard from pile 1 to pile 2, or from pile 2 to pile 3. Then I'd take a 10-minute break, and then I would repeat for a different topic. And again, if you've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, you can do those on 3 separate occasions in your 90-minute little revision slot there, or 6 times over the course of 3 hours. So you're breaking that 3 hours into manageable chunks, and you're using that really purposefully to engage your Freya flashcards, to either watch a video, go over a lesson, look at the notes that you've been taking, just so it's in short, manageable chunks. Okay, so lastly, just to recall, that's how we expect for you to split your half term. We've got the February half term core camps for you. We've got the hub open on Saturday mornings, on both Saturday mornings, and on top of that, for the Sunday, Monday, and then the Friday, Sunday of the next week, you've got the opportunity to use these 4 revision techniques in these 3-hour slots over the course of half term. So you set yourselves up really neatly for February half term. So I'm going to leave that last slide on the board. I'm going to ask your teachers to pause, and we've given you as many resources as we can in tutor time just to be able to start some of those processes.